Hey there, home labbers and engineers. So today we're going to take a look at setting up our own voice over IP server. This is actually one of my favorite things to have running on a home lab. It requires almost no processing power. It's super low latency. It's very simple and straightforward, and it's surprisingly feature rich while cutting out all the junk. There's no ads, it doesn't sell you anything, it's open source, it's awesome. So let's set up a Mumble server. So the very first thing we're going to do to install our Mumble server is sudo apt-update. After that, we're going to run sudo apt-upgrade. Make sure to update all of our packages with the latest. If you get screens that look like this is fine. Just hit the OK. Now that we've updated to all of the latest packages, we are going to go ahead and install Murmur. The simplest way to install Mumble server is just to use sudo apt-get install mumble server. If you are on different Linux distributions, this server is surprisingly well supported. So you can run it on Arch, you can run it on SUSE, you can run it on Fedora, CentOS, you can run this on Raspberry Pis. It's very lightweight, and it is really well supported across a large number of different Linux distributions. There is also a PPA that you can add the repository for it. It is just mumble/release. But for most people, it's going to be absolutely just fine. If you're running something like Ubuntu, just sudo apt-get install mumble-server. Once it's finished installing, we are actually going to run a reconfigure command. And the command for that is sudo dpkg-reconfigure mumble-server. And it is going to go through a list of questions. Yes, we want it to automatically start when the server boots up. This question here about allowing Mumble server to use higher priority, you should answer yes to this. Effectively, this can affect the latency of which speech and things like that comes through your server. And since it's a voice over IP server, it's really important that everything is always clear and speech comes through as quickly as possible. So generally speaking, you should use yes for higher priority. This screen tells you that there's going to be a SuperUser, and the SuperUser is effectively an admin account, and it has special privileges that other users do not have. The SuperUser is effectively in charge of setting up and maintaining the actual server. They don't need to be logged in all the time. You can log in as the SuperUser, create new channels, kick people, do whatever you want, and then you can exit as the SuperUser. But so this question is asking to set a password, and I'm just going to use ABC123. And it has gone ahead and set the SuperUser's password. And with that, we should be all set. Now that Mumble is installed and we have set a SuperUser password, we are going to edit some of the server ini details. So we're just going to sudo nano etc mumble-server.ini. And this is the Mumble configuration file here. We're going to go ahead and make a few small changes. Inside of this configuration file, we're going to effectively scroll down. There's a spot here where it says server password. And if you wanted to enable a server password across your entire server, we could just put it as password. A little bit above the server password, there is a spot for a port. The port by default is 64738. I don't have any particular reason to change that. However, if you want to, you obviously can. There is a spot here for welcome text, and you'll see that this is actually HTML. So you are free to change this around. You can keep it as is. It doesn't really matter. But if you wanted to write a custom welcome message, here is where you would go ahead and do that. And down through most of this, you can bind to a specific host if you want to. You can change the maximum number of concurrent users. By default, it's 100. You can set channels to only allow so many users and things like that. There's message bursting and message limiting. That way people can't effectively spam your channel. The only other thing particularly of note, there are quite a few settings in here, and if you want to get really technical with it, you can go ahead and change quite a few things around. This piece here talking about public server registration, there are tons of Mumble servers out there that are in fact public. This public server registration, you would need to uncomment every one of these lines. And to uncomment it, you would just delete out this semicolon. And you would need to delete every one of these and fill out the information for every single line in order to have this available publicly. I would recommend you do not make your server publicly available. This should be something, unless you are quite comfortable with potentially anybody connecting to your server. There is also a spot here for an SSL certificate. Mumble will generate its own, and then when people connect to your Mumble server, it will complain that this server is using a self-generated certificate. I don't use the SSL cert in here. What I do is I reverse proxy from Apache over here to Mumble. And with that, Apache has an SSL cert. So I use a star cert in Apache, reverse proxying. But if you have your own SSL cert and want to insert it, here is where you would go ahead and put that. And it has all of the normal SSL setup. If you have a passphrase, it will accept it. If you have a certificate authority, you can put it in there. You can even change SSL ciphers and things like that. But in general, that should be about all that we need for our server. So we're going to exit out. And then we're going to sudo system control restart mumble. That way all of our changes take effect. If you happen to be running a UFW or a firewall of some sort, you will need to ensure that you allow Mumble through it. Since I'm running UFW on Ubuntu, I can just do sudo UFW allow 64738. It will go ahead and create a rule to allow that TCP port through. We can check that it's actually in there. Sudo UFW status, and you'll see that we're allowing Samba, SSH, Apache full in 64738. Coming over here to Mumble, we're going to go ahead and connect. And you can connect just by clicking on the server, and the drop-down will have a connect button. And you'll see that it's already picked it up on my LAN, which is interesting. My other ones, it doesn't pick up on the LAN. But if it doesn't pick it up through the LAN, you can just click on the add new, put in your server IP, put in a username that you want, I just give it a label so I know where things are going and what username it's using. And then if you click OK, in order to connect to any of the servers, you can just select it from the list and then hit the connect button. And you'll see that it's asking for a password because I had put a password on it. So I'll just type in the password and you'll see that it let me right in. And as I'm actually recording this video, it's also picking up my microphone and trying to talk across. You'll see the little person turns blue when somebody's talking. It turns green when nobody's talking. So let's go ahead and fix that. So this little wheel icon will bring up your Mumble configuration. And from there, you can set your audio input, your audio output. You can put it on voice activity. You can change it over to continuous, and it will just always be transmitting if you hate everybody who you're friends with. Or you can use push to talk like the normal civilized people that we are. Once you make any changes, make sure that you hit the apply button. You'll see that my person instantly turned green since I'm not pushing the push to talk key. Also on voice activity, you can set the thresholds from where it will start and stop picking up. So it's actually pretty slick in how it works, and you can really customize it to pick up your voice very nicely only when you're talking and to ignore your voice when you're not. There's also noise suppression, echo cancellation, all sorts of interesting things in here. Generally speaking, I just use both echo cancellation as well as noise suppression. Make sure you go through your audio output and set up whatever the correct audio devices are for you. You can, in fact, go into the user interface, and there is light and dark theming. And if you use push to talk, you can go into shortcuts and add a new key that is under the push to talk. When you're done, hit apply, hit OK. And now if you see this, you'd say, well, I mean, that's great, but there's not much there. So let's go ahead and fix that. We're going to actually disconnect from the server, and then we're going to reconnect. We're going to add new again. We're going to go ahead and put in our server's IP address. And then we're going to add the username of SuperUser. And for me, I just put the SuperUser password of abc123. And you'll see that the password is abc123, hit OK. Now that we went ahead and added the SuperUser as one of our favorites, we can just select that, hit connect. You'll see our channel is very empty. So what we can do is we can fix that by adding sub-channels. Call this one sub-channel 1. Call a channel raid. And we'll make another channel Minecraft Kids. And then for the RAID channel, we'll go ahead and edit that. And we'll say that we'll go ahead and put a password on the channel because maybe we don't want children in there or something along those lines. We'll go ahead and put that at the bottom. The SuperUser, of course, can go right into it because they are the SuperUser. But normal users will need to know the password in order to get into it. There's a lot that you can do with this. There's a lot of configuration. You can add users to groups, and you can make it so that certain channels can only be accessed by certain groups. You can make it so that in certain channels, only a small number of people have permission to actually speak. You can, in fact, type out messages. And people inside of the channel will see the messages. You can type messages to people in root. You can use private messaging and stuff like that back and forth with people. It's simple and yet feature rich. It's an interesting program. I've happened to use this for years with quite a few friends, and we just use it when we're gaming. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It works fantastically well. And so having it set up now as a server is great. But now let's take a look at adding it so that other people can get to it without necessarily needing to know our IP address. If you happen to have a domain name, you will need to make a DNS entry. For myself, I use AWS with Route 53, and my feengineer.com is hosted there. And you'll happen to see that I have a star, so I can effectively set whatever I want, and it will all route to my router at home. Once your DNS entry is pointed to your home IP address, now all that you need to do is go into your router and go to something called port forwarding. I happen to use a UDM from Unify. If other people are not using a Unify UDM Pro, I am sure that your router will look quite different. But generally speaking, you will want to find something called port forwarding. So in order to set up our port forwarding, we're just going to create an entry. We're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Mumble FE forwarding. I'm going to go ahead and enable this rule. I'm going to set it for all of my WAN ports. And then the way that port forwarding basically works is you get to say people coming from somewhere should go somewhere that I choose. So I'm going to say people coming from anywhere using port 64738. And I want them to go to 192.168.3.7, which is where the Mumble server is. And they're going to stay on port 64738. And then go ahead and click Add Entry. Once your port forwarding is set up, come back over to Mumble. Go ahead and hit connect. And then you can create the server name to connect to using an actual web address, such as mumble.fe-engineer.com. Your username, click OK, click connect, and you'll see it says it found an auto-generated certificate. Yes, we're going to trust it. And now we're in. For those out there wanting to set up a voice over IP server, I hope this has helped, and your Mumble server should be up and running, and now you can invite friends and stuff like that to join into your server. As well as the fact that, as I mentioned, they do actually have an iOS application. I would guess they probably do on Android as well. So you can even connect to your server through your phone and things like that. It's pretty slick how it works. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for watching my videos, home labbers and engineers. I create and edit all of these videos on my own, so any likes and subscribes will massively help out the channel and allow me to continue creating content to help people. If you got value out of this, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel to be notified when new content drops. If there's something I've not covered but you would like to see a video on it, please leave a comment down below. And again, a massive thank you to everyone. I hope you have a great day.